What's happening, everyone? It is too damn hot outside to be working on this right now, so I figured I'll do it inside the comfort of my air conditioning. So, the story of the day. The crankshaft. Doesn't it look like that's been torched pretty good? We tried to get this PTO off.
I don't know what's about to happen. Just hold on.
Oh, mother of God. So my buddy had to take it to his auto shop and use it with a acetylene torch to heat that thing up to several hundred degrees, and use a 2,000 foot-pound impact gun that they use to take off tractor trailer wheels. So they call that the Terminator. Well, anyways, they eventually got it off. So here is the this is a spline tool for taking the impeller off. This one's made by Solas, and it actually fits in there. They say that's not impact rated, but I did use it, or he did use it with the impact, and it worked fine. So now that that's just loose by hand, I can take this off. I'm going to take it off in a second. But the real way to do this is to, apply heat to it and get it hot, but also not to torque this thing on. You don't need to torque this PTO on when you're putting this back together. In fact, I'm going to hand tighten this because the way the motor spins, it's constantly going against the force of the prop in the water in a tightening motion. So it's just going to make it tighter as you're driving. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but that's how I do it. I just put it on hand tight, and the first time in the water, that thing is tied up anyways. When you use heat, you have to replace that crankshaft seal. It's no good. That's why I have new crankshaft seals. You don't want to get it hot enough to where you fry these crankshaft seals, because these are not replaceable unless you rebuild the crank. So the reason I wanted this off was because I didn't know the condition of this seal. I wanted to replace that with a new one while I'm already here. So then I'm going to take that off. I'll replace the seal. I'll put this back together, and we're just going to get the bottom end together. And I'll oil it down when I'm done, and that can sit there until the top end comes in. But at least I get progress. And you don't want to forget your seal retainer for the rotary gear, the rotary chamber here. I'll show you that, and that's going to keep the seal where it needs to be. The seals keeps them these right here. Here's the outer crankshaft seal here. This is the one on the side that got heated, and I'm not sure. I mean, it doesn't look bad, but there's no sense of doing all this for this seal to fail. And the difference between inner versus outer, if the outer seals are bad, you'll suck air into the motor and run lean. If the inner seals are bad, you will flood the motor with oil. So, two different functions here. When you put this seal on, either put some grease here or something to keep this, lubed, because until the motor starts and gets two-stroke down here, and you don't want these seals to run dry. If you clean that shaft off dry and that thing spins inside the seal, it's going to wipe out that rubber on the inside before the thing even gets lubricated. So soak that pretty good there. So I got the seal retainer in there. I can't explain how that fits, but if it will turn like this, it feels like it's in a groove, you're good. And that's got to be flat so that the top case lays on there flat, so this thing isn't walkie-jawed like that. You want it to be straight. So I can't explain how that fits, but it kind of rotates and slides in there, and that's keeping the seals from moving in. Now, one thing to note, let's see if I can zoom in here. You can see the alignment of the seal right here. There's a little lip. Maybe you can see it better on that side. You see the lip that's on there? That lip has to be in that groove properly. Right in there. These kind of fit in no problem. But if this is off by like 3 millimeters, this thing's going to drink oil and it's garbage. Just you tear it all apart. So make sure you don't crush these seals in the wrong little groove there. And here's the pain in the ass part. So I am using Harbor Freight brand red high temp RTV gasket maker. Now, some people use some Loctite primer and some other stuff. Well, you can use whatever you want. I am not telling you what to use. Anyways, so you gotta just sit here, some Q-tips and paint. It's easier to do it when it's on here because you gotta kind of, you know, use your hands on this deck here to get the crankshaft in straight, so you don't want to make a mess. But you don't want air to leak in and, you know, have it lean. Now here's a fun fact. These cases are matched at the factory. So you can't order a half online and expect it to mate perfectly. This was put together at the factory like precision. So there was no gasket maker. But once you split it, it's kind of a good idea to put a little layer. So just take yourself some Q-tips and play Bob Ross and paint some happy permatex, you know, like Happy Cloud, like Bob Ross used to do on PBS. Just sit there and, you know, get a light coat. This is not light by any means. My word of light sucks. But at least you can, you know, get a thin layer on there, because when you push it on there, it's going to squeeze in. So you want to get this right and do it one time. Okay, one time. When you put it together and take it apart, it's going to be a mess. And make sure you try not to get the stuff all over the rods and in the bearings. I mean, a little bit's going to seep in here when I squeeze it, but hopefully the gas eats it up and spits it out the exhaust. So I've already done it once with the yellow motor, and so far no problem. So when you get the bolts in there and you get them just hand tight snug, you're going to use, if you have a book, or you can go online and get the Seadoo manual, and tighten them in sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9, 10, 11, 12, then 13, 14. I'm using a Harbor Freight torque wrench with the click type here. You set this up to where it clicks when it's at the appropriate torque level. Listen. Okay? That's it. Alright. And the crank is together. Now, just double check your work and make sure, you know, if you have to, you go over and touch these up in case your torque wrench is malfunctioning or something. If you're real picky, well, at least this part, I'm not worried about the case seams here. This part here, you see I got the Permatex that came out clean. You can get some rubbing alcohol, paper towel. Easier when it's dry. You can just rip it right off and hit it with alcohol. I'm going to hit this with 2000 grit sandpaper, get the overspray off from the paint, and match these up as best as I can. You should feel really no gap here at all when you're done. I feel a little tiny edge right here. So if I hit that maybe 3 or 4 times like this with sandpaper, it'll be gone. Other than that, it should, most importantly, it should be free. Look, I can turn this. I haven't even oiled it yet. I can turn it with one hand. The rotary valve, rotary gear, is turning. But look, like 2 fingers. See this? Watch. I should be able to turn it like this. If you cannot, and it's bound up, stop what you're doing. Take it apart. Before you get to torquing it, make sure when they're snug that you can move this before you go wrenching on it, because you don't want to smash a bearing, you don't want to smash a seal. You certainly don't want this rotary gear to be smashed onto the crankcase gear, not meshing properly. And then what happens is, the second you fire that thing up, it's going to strip that bitch right off, turn it into a, it'll be just smooth. So you want to make sure like this. Now the last step I'll show you of what I'm going to do, so I'm going to wait for the top end kit and all that, but the bottom end is ready to go. I would let this Permatex cure a couple days, you know, that's just me. But at this point I could put the PTO back on. When I get the top end on, I could put the mag side back on, the flywheel, the stator cover and all that, and I'm almost done, man. This motor's almost ready. The hardest part, I think, is this. Pistons and rings, easy. The last thing is, I'm going to cover this up until I'm ready, but this right here is another thing I showed you before if you follow along. This is made by Klotz, and I have a lot of Klotz stuff. I swear by this shit, man. This is, wow. I only wish Klotz knew how much. Anyways, so fog on. And this was something I didn't always use. I use Klotz products always, but fog on is an engine storage lubricant. What you do is you fog your motor for the winter. It keeps everything from rusting inside because the ethanol and everything will rust. But what I use this for actually is like a lubricant. It says excellent after run lubricant, but I just soaked the shit out of this thing, okay? Because I don't want this thing to be a dry start. So, you know, it's going to take a few revolutions when I put this thing back together before the bearings are coated. So what I'm doing is I just flood the hell out of it, all right? Nothing to worry about, because once you get it fired up, it's gonna smoke a lot, but it's gonna burn it all off, all right? But you do not want a dry start. I can turn this thing over 100 times before it's running dry. But that's it. My engine is, the bottom end is ready to go. And look, that even made it easier, look. But that's it. Bottom end's on. Bottom end is done, and top end is next. So thanks for watching.